Hello everyone, Oli here, and this is my review of The Seeds of Death, the fifth story of the sixth season of classic Doctor Who, starring Patrick Troughton as the second Doctor. The Seeds of Death is the 48th story overall, it's 6 episodes long, and is written by Brian Hills. Fortunately, all 6 episodes exist in the BBC archives. The Seeds of Death is as follows. By the late 21st century, mankind has become completely dependent on TMAT to transport people, food, and medicines around the world. When the system breaks down, Earth is soon crippled by global shortages. Traveling to the relay station on the moon, the Doctor and his companions discover the horrific truth. The Ice Warriors have hijacked Tiamat and intend to claim the planet for themselves. Can the Doctor defeat the Martians before Earth is smothered in deadly fungus and the human race is condemned to extinction? So that is the plot of The Seeds of Death. The Seeds of Death. Woo! I actually had party poppers, but I had a mishap with filming the first take, so The Seeds of Death, judging by that reaction, I love the story so much. Ever since I started doing these reviews on YouTube, I've been looking forward to getting to The Seeds of Death because it's my favorite classic Who story ever. Of all 160 stories, The Seeds of Death is actually my favorite, and obviously that means The Seeds of Death is my favorite Charlton story as well. Reason is, nostalgia does play a bit of a part in it, but I love how incredible this and iconic and how fun this story was. I remember watching this story so many times as a youngster. So just watching it so many times, I was just so captivated by it, and I would actually say that The Seeds of Death is my first love, and it has stuck with me ever since 2008 oops, because this is the first Classic Who DVD I got when I was a kid, and it's a bit of a sentimental story for me, and I decided to keep the special edition that came with revisitations too, because why not? Even though I wouldn't actually keep two of the same stories, but the Seeds of Death I'll make a special exception because I love it so much. The Seeds of Death is fantastic. I mean, the plot was very interesting. There wasn't really a dull moment. The sets I really liked. I loved the Space Museum. I think it was in London where the TARDIS had landed. I liked all the props they had featured in that, and I liked the bit in the TARDIS when the Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe actually trying to find out where they were, and then we got the whole glimpse through the TARDIS time scanner, but not the time scanner, like the TARDIS scanner, like trying to scan and see where they are. And I think I liked how they used the Russian astronaut, not CCP sign, and other bits and pieces as well. And I think that planner from the web planets can actually be seen in that scene as well. Oh, and I actually like the team at Earth Control set. It felt very space stationy, and I love the moon base where most of the story actually took place. And all the corridors surrounding around it, especially that chase scene in episode 3, which I get into a bit later. The script was great. The lines, everyone had good lines, and the direction by Michael Ferguson was actually very good. And it's a shame he didn't like it. I remember reading somewhere he hated how slow it was, and it's a shame really because he used a lot of interesting camera angles and used interesting shots as well, which I actually liked. I love the visuals we saw in the story, including the special opening that shows the story name, the episode number, and actually had included the moon and the earth as well, and especially that music that was playing. It was very tense and it was chilling as well. And I love how the Ice Warriors Sonic Blast was modified from their original story, and especially that sound effect is just so iconic. That to me is probably one of the most iconic sounds ever, and it's a shame it wasn't actually used in the Peloton stories. And even when they returned for New Who as well, it's a shame they didn't actually bring that back. And I liked how the seed pods were used to harm and kill some of the other people, and especially when Brent was killed in episode 4 when the Isoris in that seed pod to the Earth Tiamat Center, and actually pretty much killed almost everyone there. And also, speaking of Tiamat, the idea of it was actually quite clever, and I liked how it played a huge part in the story and how it was used as a method of transportation for the main characters and the Ice Warriors. The action scenes were very good and it was very well choreographed, and almost everyone got enthralled, from Jamie Phipps to Miss Kelly herself. It was very marvelous to see, and this story had a lot of death and destruction, and I was shocked how so many people had actually died when I was watching. I was younger. I was just like, what? But it was a good thing because it showed how deadly the Ice Warriors were, as opposed to when they first appeared in season 5. They were just the only thing they killed like one or two people, but in this story they killed a lot of people, and that was just was brutally done. And we also had some iconic moments and some cliffhangers as well. One of my favorite scenes from this story, and probably for the whole Doctor Who as well, for the entirety of Doctor Who, was when the Doctor was being menaced by the film and the seed pod and whoever controls the bureau, and then that was actually the episode 5 cliffhanger when he was trying to open the door, but Jamie and Zoe weren't able to answer because there was an ice warrior inside. But it's resolved when Zoe actually saves him in time, and it was also it's a brilliant scene, and even there's some behind the scenes as well. I think Charlton had actually slipped a few times, and you can see Wendy Pabry trying very hard not to laugh, but she just ends up smiling and smiling there. I mean, you can tell it was very fun to film. And I also like the part when the Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe were on the rocket heading towards the moon, and everything seemed to be going well after takeoff, and then all of a sudden you hear this music playing, and the radio link is dead. You can see everyone from Miss Kelly to Eldridge to Ratner trying to scramble, trying to figure what the hell was going on, and then I think they do get a hold of the rockets, but then I think they actually lost a bit of contact during takeoff, and then did nothing bad actually did happen to them yet. And then Zoe I pretty much snapped at Miss Kelly. It was so funny as well, and I also like the scene when the Ice Warriors are chasing the Doctor down that corridor. I mean, I think Phipps was there as well, and then I think the Ice Warriors got a hold of Miss Kelly, who actually used T-Mat to get to the moon, and then obviously that music that was playing, and then I think it's even on the DVD, on the original DVD menu. It's just it's just so iconic. It's even on YouTube as well. I just love that scene. That for me just pretty much one of the main reasons why I love this story, because it's just so epic. It's just so tense as well, and it's also funny. And then when the Ice Warriors actually do corner the Doctor was like, "You can't kill me. You'll either be angry because I'm a genius," and then the Ice Warriors are like, "Genius." And that's how the Doctor meets Fuchsia. And speaking of the music, I'm sure probably must have noticed. I mean, I really love the music. It's very exciting, very tense, and actually reminds me of a bit of the Fear from the Deep story. But I would say this one is a lot better. Fear from the Deep it was good in its own way, but obviously that one was scary. The Seeds of Death one, it's a bit of fun, horror, and excitement as well, and that's why I like it. And I would say that Dudley Simpson did a fantastic job. Fantabulous. Now on to the main performances, which I thought were amazing. Patrick Charlton shines here once again. He did an amazing job here, and you can tell he's really giving it his all because the man's leaving in 2 stories' time, and he wants to make a good last impression. And then my favorite scene from this story, as I mentioned before, was the whole I'm a genius scene. And there was another scene I actually liked. It was at the end of the story when the Doctor had actually finally defeated the Ice Warriors by having the Ice Warriors follow a satellite linked out towards the sun, which obviously would have killed them. And then Slar was like, "You killed my people," and then the Doctor's like, "You tried to destroy an entire planet," justifying that what he did was right. Then it was a cold scene. It actually shows the darker side of the Doctor, something we hadn't seen in quite some time. And it was nice to see that side come out because the Doctor would do anything to try and save the human race. Jamie and Zoe, they were great as well, and there was no instance where one of the companions was doing more of the heavy lifting and the other was just there. And they both did both they both did heavy lifting in their parts, especially episode 4 when Charlton was on holiday. They both carried the episodes themselves, and that was really good because Charlton actually went on holiday, and Jamie and Zoe actually did quite a lot. They were on the moon one day. Yeah, they were on the moon, and I think Zoe even gets a cliffhanger from that episode as well, which I'll get to a bit later. And Jamie, in this story, he actually does get down and dirty with a few ice warriors and actually saves the day when after the Doctor killed the Ice Warriors by sending them to the sun, and then Slar was about to kill him, then Jamie, with the assistance of Zuri, went on team out to try and at least stop the Ice Warriors. And I think they turned on the heating as well, and that's how. No, 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 no. I think the Ice Warrior was about to kill the Doctor, and then Jamie was able to grab the Sonic Blaster and used it on Slar, and Slar died, and then the Ice Warrior just died right from the heat, and that was a good job from Jamie. I think this is probably one of the most impressive scenes from Jamie I've seen from him. Zoe, she does a great job as well. I mean, I love how she decides to volunteer and enter the control room of the moon base when Jamie wasn't able to get through the grow. And of course, this actually leads to the episode 4 cliffhanger, which is actually one of my personal favorites because Zoe was with Phipps and she was trying to like sneak around. I think Fuchsium and Ice Warrior was in that room, and then I think Phipps had a panic attack, which alerted one of the Ice Warrior that was there, and then the Ice Warrior killed Phipps, and then Zoe, she was frightened and she was actually trying to turn on the heating, and then the Ice Warrior catches her and she's frozen in fear, and then she's trying to get Fuchsium to help her, and then Fuchsium's just standing there because Fuchsium has his own storyline as well because he obviously wants to live, and he obviously has to help the Ice Warriors as well because he wants to live, and then he realizes what he's doing is not good, but so he pretty much sacrifices himself to stop the Ice Warriors. But I'll get into that a little bit later. But then obviously Fuchsium actually does end up attacking the Ice Warrior, and then Zoe was able to turn on the heating, and then the Ice Warrior just falls and dies. So I think it's safe to say Fraser Hines and Brandy Padbury did great jobs in this story. Whew. On to the side cast who I say were incredible. First off, we had Miss Gia Kelly. She's the head of Team Out and Control in London. She obviously had to deal with Commander Radner and his bossy ways, and obviously dealing with the stress of what's going on over in the moon base. She visits the moon via T-Mac to try and figure out what's going on, and she ends up getting captured by the Ice Warriors, but I think she is able to escape and returns to Earth shortly afterwards. No, she manages to escape, and she's hiding out in one of the other rooms with with Phipps, and the Phipps, Jamie and Zoe, and the Doctor as well, but then they all head back to Earth when Fuchsium does fix his team out temporarily. And I would say that she was good. She was a great side character. We had Commander Ratner as well. I think he's Kelly's superior. I think he obviously wanted to help the Doctor defeat the Isours and was actually actively doing so, but then he was a bit domineering and a bit protective of Miss Kelly. I think gender politics does kind of come into this. And also have fond memories of this guy screaming, Miss Kelly, Miss Kelly, whenever she'd go over his orders. We had Professor Daniel Eldridge. He runs the space museum that the TARDIS had landed inside, and obviously because of T-Mat, no one was really interested in his museum because T-Mat was this big whole thing that changed the system, and then he was a bit saddened by this because I think he was friends with Radner as well. Obviously, Radner chose to work with T-Mat, and then I think that Eldridge saw this as a betrayal and just decided to work in his museum. And then when he told the Doctor that no one was interested in the whole transport museum, the Doctor was very shocked. And then obviously, Miss Kelly and Radner came to Daniel and asked him for help to send a rocket to the moon to see what was going on over there. And then he reluctantly agreed, and then he actually does decide to help out with what was going on the moon with the ice wars, but he was mainly on Earth with Ratner and the others. And then I actually liked how their friendship was a bit of a factor in this story, how in the earlier parts of this story, because obviously he was still hurt, and he obviously decided to overcome it and decided to put all that aside, decided to help what was going on with the Ice Warriors and decided to stop them. We also had Sir James Grigson. He comes in like later on in the story. I think he's the UN representative for T-Mat or somewhere along those lines. He was actually a good character. I liked him, even if he does show up a bit late. But yeah, we also had Phipps. He was working with Fuchsium and some of the other members like Locke and Osgood on the moon, and then obviously the Ice Warriors killed them, and then And then Phipps, he almost got killed, but he was wounded by the blast, so he was just pretty much hiding out in one of the storerooms, and then he does actually help the Dr. Jamie and Zoe land the rocket onto the moon and was able to help out with the Isosaurs before getting killed by one of them who was trying to help Zoe turn up the heating. And he was another good character. Brent, another character doesn't actually do much, but I liked his character, and he actually died in episode 4 thanks to the seed pod. And finally, we have Fuchsium. This character really stood out for me because he had a very context plot within himself, because he was obviously, as I mentioned before, he was scared of the Ice Warriors, so out of fear he decides to work with them, and obviously think everyone are not thinking that he betrayed Earth and everyone else there. So, and even though the chance to escape actually arose, he decided not to take it because he was still scared of the Ice Warriors, and that actually come to help by, because in episode 5, after saving Zuri, he realizes the Ice Warriors are not. He realizes he can't be doing this anymore and decides to send a video link to Earth informing them of the Ice Warriors invasion fleet, and then obviously Slash sees this and orders Fuchsium to die, and then that's how the climax of the story starts, because of Fuchsium's video link. Miss Kelly decides to send up a satellite link for the Ice Warriors invasion fleet along with the Grand Marshal that was there towards the moon, towards the sun, which ended up killing everyone. And I liked how Fuchsium's character was able to overcome his whole fear of the Ice Warriors for good, and then obviously it's a shame he had to die for it, but it is what it is. And now on to the villains themselves, the Ice Warriors. They returned for a rematch, and they were better written than the last story they appeared in, which was the Ice Warriors in season 5. I mean, this is because it actually made the Ice Warriors even more interesting, because it was not just those Ice Warriors you saw. We actually saw Ice Warriors of different ranks. We had the Grand Marshal, and he had Sla, who was their leader, and obviously they all had different clothes. Sla, he had this helmet thing that pretty much covered his eyes, and we only saw his mouth. Apart from the Ice Warriors, their main outfit was just pretty much a mask. They only had their eyes and their mouth. And their mouth shown, and obviously the Grand Marshal was pretty much the same as Sla, but had like jewels all over the Grand Marshal's face. And obviously the Ice Warriors, they were very brutal, and I really liked that. I liked how they were just pretty much killing everyone in sight, everyone on sight, and I liked how they were just walking around. There's even a scene in the story when I think people that were trying to clear the foam, the Ice Warriors just saw them and just killed them without hesitation at all. And it actually made them a lot more menacing and a lot then definitely a force to be reckoned with, as opposed to how we saw them in their first story, the Ice Warriors. So speaking of Sla, he was the leader of the Ice Warriors and the big bad of the story, and I would say he was really good. He doesn't actually do a whole lot other than just ordering the Ice Warriors to kill people, but he was still a good villain. Alan Benny did a good job portraying Sla. And I liked how we couldn't see him or the Ice Warriors in episode 1 to conceal their appearance. I think I was reading somewhere that on the Radio Times about this story, they had to credit the Ice Warriors as aliens, so we don't find out who they actually are. So we didn't actually see the Ice Warriors, but we actually heard Sla's raspy, silvery voice, and as I said, he was very good and he was a great leader for the Ice Warriors. And it was a bit odd how Sla was actually speaking along with the Ice Warriors as well. Sla was speaking like this. And the Ice Warriors do speak like this as well, but it's a good thing that when the Ice Warriors return next, the whole issue is fixed. Even though Alan Benyon does return, but not as Sla. He returns as a different character in the story he appears in next. He just talks normally, and I actually like that. And Sla's costume, as I mentioned, was pretty much just like a mini helmet of a sort, just pretty much covering the eyes, just going back like that. It was pretty cool. So I don't really have any faults with the Ice Warriors, but a lot of people would say it's a bit slow. I mean, I can sort of understand why. I mean, when I was watching this story not too long ago, I still love it, but then obviously episode 1, there was a lot slower paced than compared to the rest of the story. But as I mentioned before in my review of The Fury from the Deep, I wouldn't say it's a slow pace as the source, but it's slower pace because it's slowly building to the main action and it pays off in an amazing way. So yeah. So in my opinion, and to sum up this review, The Seeds of Death is an iconic and is a monumental story for me. I really love this story, and if it wasn't for The Seeds of Death, I don't think this channel would have actually existed today. So I give The Seeds of 10 the perfect 10 out of 10. Good job from everyone involved. My next review will be The Space Pirates, and this features the final set of missing episodes for Doctor Who and the penultimate story for Patrick Troughton and 60s Doctor Who overall. So thank you for watching this review. Please let me know what your thoughts of the eyesore is and this review as well, and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, and until then, see you later.